Hi everyone, here's the book chemist once again. Cormac McCarthy passed away very recently, and I've seen tons of editorials and opinion pieces on the internet from great fans of his works and people who wanted to remark on his significance for American letters. I always ask for your opinions in my videos whenever I discuss a book, and I do always read your comments, although not as fast. I don't get to them as fast as I wish I could. But today, more than ever, I want this to be a bit of a conversation, and I wanted to ask for your experience with Cormac McCarthy's works. How and why his books are significant to you as readers, how they changed the way you read the world, if indeed they did that, and why do you consider him an author that you cherish, because I know that so many of you are big McCarthy fans. In your comments to my videos where I've discussed his works, you expressed your admiration, and in some others of my videos you asked me to talk more about McCarthy. I know he's very close to your heart for many of you. McCarthy was a very important author for me when I was 19 and 20 and I'd just started my BA, my undergraduate degree. After a teenage fascination with American culture, I decided that I wanted to study American literature. But at the time when I made this decision, I hadn't actually read too much of it at all. And McCarthy was one of the authors that I always heard mentioned, especially in conversations about great contemporary American writers. I started with No Country for Old Men and The Road, and those were both novels that hit me really hard because of this strange balance that they show between a very gritty type of realism, but also moments of great tenderness. For instance, moments in No Country for Old Men where the narrator talks about his youthful love, or I'm thinking too of the final paragraphs of The Road. That's a very difficult balance to strike, especially to strike in a very natural, very impactful way that doesn't feel contrived, and it impressed me to no end at the time. Back when I read those books, I was still an incredibly young reader. It was still very early in my journey as a reader. And I must confess that my passion for McCarthy at the time was in part an act of posing, to put it unkindly, or to put it in a more kindly way, it was a bit of a leap of faith. There was a lot in his books that I didn't fully get, but what I did get, and the things that I found in there that I found valuable, were things that I really liked in a very deep and passionate manner. It's the same feeling that I got when for instance, when I studied very long, very complex poems in some of my classes. I maybe missed the full intricacies of the poem or the significance of it as a work of art, a piece of literary history as a whole, but nonetheless there were maybe a stanza, maybe even just a couple of lines within the poem that shone for me with great truth, and also obviously with great beauty. Of course, those days I still believed that things would be different for me one day. I still believed that at one point I would just get all of these works and understand their full complex meaning, whereas these days I'm much more relaxed as a reader. I feel like that idea where with books, especially with difficult books, some of it you don't get, some of it resonates really deeply with you. I think that's just reading. There's no other way to read, and maybe as you develop as a reader, but even more as you develop as a person, more of the book will resonate with you, more parts of it, different parts of it will resonate with your experience. But I've definitely left behind long ago that notion that you either get books or not, and it's more complicated and more beautiful than that, I think. More interesting, certainly. Later on I read McCarthy's earlier works, novels such as Satri and Blood Meridian, and there too what struck me really hard was this ambivalence between a deep sense of awe, for instance at the wonders of the natural landscape, or at the endless possibilities of life, but also a very strong commitment to talk about the most horrifying aspects of existence, and especially about the most horrifying things that human beings do to each other. I have not read much McCarthy after graduating, but in recent years I reread the Border Trilogy and found it really truly magnificent and disarming almost in the way it paints the twists and turns of fate, the ways in which life impacts the very makeup of its characters. Those are books that fuse plot and thought in a way that feels at once very modern but also strangely old-fashioned. I've been planning to reread Satri for a very long time, and I am of course curious to read The Passenger and Stella Maris, McCarthy's latest novels, and I hope to be in a good place for both endeavors soon. The final paragraph of Satri is one of the most beautiful passages I've ever read, and McCarthy's fiction, more broadly speaking, is full of these truly luminous, truly beautiful passages that shine with a very consoling and redeeming light, even while they discuss some of life's darkest sides. To conclude, one of the statements of McCarthy's that resonated the most with me doesn't even come from his fiction. It actually comes from an interview where he famously stated he talked about the ugly fact that all novels come from other novels, that the fiction one writes inevitably comes from the fiction that inspired their artistic creation. And it's something that I find really interesting because it resonates very much, it makes very much sense for the kind of reader that I am, and for what it's worth, even for the kind of writer that I am when I write fiction. It's a statement that I find especially interesting from a writer like McCarthy. It's one thing when you read similar statements from Oscar Wilde or H.P. Lovecraft, but it's quite something to read it from an author who is famous for fairly muscular novels that deal with the frontier, with the violent life of war and conflict, and with these fairly gritty themes. These are some of the ways in which McCarthy's works have been relevant for me, and I look forward to hearing about the ways in which his novels and his works, more broadly speaking, have resonated with you as readers. Let me know in the comments. I really look forward to having a conversation around this point, and for anybody out there who is reading or is going to read McCarthy's works in the near future, I hope you have a great time with them. I do look forward to going back to them, and talking about it is, if anything, making me want to reread Satri, to go to those new novels even sooner than I had planned. Thank you as always for watching the video, and bye everybody.